If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by portrait photography, or just at a loss of what to focus on to take you to that next level, then come hang with me. I help guide portrait photographers just like you to stay clear and sharp in camera and with your goals. I'm your host, photographer, educator, and weirdly positive mama for Emily Supio. And this is the Stay Focused podcast. Photography advice to help you stay focused.
Well, hey everyone, and welcome to this bonus episode of the Stay Focused podcast. I am so glad that you decided to press play on today's episode. Remember, this whole month, we have double week episodes. I'm super excited about that. We're getting ready to kick off the Creative Collaboration, which is a collaboration of photography education from photographers all over the world. That kicks off at the end of this month, but you get a sneak peek preview at some of the contributors all month long. And I'm super excited about the guest we have on today's show. Helen Don is a photographer with over 13 years experience. And what she's going to be sharing with you probably is a little more than just relatable. Now, I can remember back when my first son was born. He is in high school now, but when he was first born, I wanted to take pictures of everything that he did. Like, I was so in love with being a mom. I'm not in past tense, but I still love being a mom, but I wanted to document everything my kids were doing. I did not have the money at the time to go out and buy a camera, and people weren't really sharing how to take great pictures as much as they are now. There wasn't as many course opportunities as there are right now. So it took me a long time to learn. And I was learning on a borrowed camera that thankfully my dad let me borrow. It was an older Canon Rebel, but it did the job. And what I found amazing was listening to the guest on the show today. Her story was super similar. And I know that you may have a story that's very similar too. She doesn't share just her story, but she shares how she went very quickly to starting a business and having a consistent wait list for her family photography business. So I'm super excited to have her on in just a few minutes. Okay, so if you are thinking, wait, before I can even start thinking about having a waiting list of clients or starting a business, I need to know how to take a great picture first. Then you're in the right place, my friend, because I have a free 1-hour photography class with your name on it. Register at cozyclicks.com/framework to take part in my free masterclass, the 4-step framework to confidently shooting beautiful portraits. That will help get you on the right track and feeling more confident behind your camera so that you can make all of those bigger goals and dreams a reality. Make sure to sign up at cozyclicks.com/framework. All right, you guys, we have Helen Don on the show with us today. Hey, Helen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So, Helen, I'm going to do something a little different than I usually do with my guests. Usually I ask my guests to kind of explain who they are. But instead of telling people listening right now who you are right now, can you think back to when you first started taking pictures and kind of tell us how you got started in the very beginning with photography?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all started with me having a baby and he's going to be 14 next week. So it's been a few years. But I had like the first version iPhone, I think back then. And that was not cutting it. Like, that's when photography started getting really big. I would just see in like different chat forums, people were doing, using the big cameras and getting those pretty pictures. So I was like, I want that. That's what I want to do. I need those pictures of my kid. And I can't go to a photographer like every week. So I need to figure it out myself. And that's how it all started.
So that sounds so similar to my story, but I think a lot of newer photographers out there have that same story you do. And my son just turned 14 recently,
Oh, no
my
way.
oldest son. So we're like right there. And you've got a lot of kids too, right? How many kids do you have, Helen?
I only have 3. I think you have 4, right?
I do have only 3. I mean, really any kids. If you just have one kid, that could be a lot. But yeah.
Well, I have 9 goats, so I guess they're technically kids.
Exactly, right? Okay, so you start having kids. And so I think a lot of people in the beginning, they start having kids, right? And they want great pictures of their kids. You did, I did. I'm sure you guys that are listening right now, you did, or maybe it's your grandkids right now that you're thinking of. Like, so what does that look like to you? Did you just decide like, well, enough with my camera phone. I'm going to get I'm going to go get a DSLR and go take classes, or I'm going to borrow a camera, or what did that actually look like? Because I know we have that feeling like we want great pictures, but how does that look for you?
Well, first of all, back then the iPhone was awful. The iPhone camera was like super blurry. It was nothing like it is today. So to be honest with you, today, I almost never bring my big camera with me because I'm like, I can, with portrait mode and all the different settings on the iPhone, I can capture amazing shots. And then the wide angle like blows my mind. So I don't really use my big camera unless I'm working lately. But it was my 27th birthday and I was like, I want a big camera. So like I got money from different family members and I got my first Canon Rebel, like the basic entry level. And that's what I learned on. I decided to start a business like a couple months after I got that camera. I was like, I love this. I'm doing it. Like, I don't care that I really never cared that my gear wasn't professional in the beginning. And it totally didn't matter. I mean, I still I think my niece, I gave her that camera and she started her photography business with it and she's still using it. So, I mean, I'm not a gear snob at all. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I didn't take any classes. I just was on these different like photography forums and Googling stuff and YouTube. And I mean, 14 years ago, there wasn't nearly as much content as there is online now. Mm-hmm. So I read my camera manual and I just trial and error. So the learning curve for me was I don't know, steep. How do I say? It took me a long time to figure things out.
Yeah. And I remember that too. Back in the day, not only was there not as much information and not as many courses, but I feel like people were kind of secretive, like back 14 years ago. Like people weren't open to sharing things. And so it would take a long time to try to figure out how to make things happen. You said something though, that I think a lot of people out there think too when they first start their cameras. You said, you got your camera and then within a few months you were ready to start a business already. Was that already in your head when did you have that idea already, or was it just sparked by being able to take good pictures? How did that evolve so quick?
Sparked by being a stay-at-home mom. And I was like, well, I'm not really doing anything anyway, so let's see what happens here. So I'm not sure that I had that idea when I first got the camera. The idea was just to try to take good pictures of my son. But I mean, it worked out well for a career.
Well, apparently, because now 13 years in, you've got so much going on. And so I guess this is how I usually start the show, Helen, by asking people to tell everybody who they are right now. So now let's go, 13 years later, who are you now? And who are you as a photographer now? What are you doing?
Yeah, well, thank you. So I've been doing all kinds of things. So in the beginning, I was shooting everything. Then I was shooting tons of weddings. Now I really have refined when and how I work. So it's almost like a very specific formula. I shoot pretty much every other weekend, mostly families, and I do them like back to back in one location. I mean, I still do like for some clients, and I have a package for like an on location session, but primarily like I consolidate my work because I really like my family time and that's my priority. So I like having a business too, but instead of having the business run my life, I run the business. So it's really nice. I'm lucky. I have a long wait list. So it's like when I put out my openings, knock on wood, they always get full pretty, in a couple minutes. So this is definitely the business model for me. No more weddings, no more, 15-hour days. That's not for me.
That is amazing. And I feel like that is the dream of so many newer photographers out there, to get their camera and start taking great pictures of their kids. And listen, right here, you guys, anyone that's listening right now, Helen, it happened to her. It can happen to you too. It just, you get that camera, a couple months later, you're in business. And now she's got a wait list. She has all these years of experience. She's tried everything. And I love what you said too, about, your business doesn't run you. You run your business. So
it used to, though. So I have to say, it took a long time to get to this place where I am, and I put in my time. At one point when I was a single mom, it was, after I was divorced, but before I got remarried, I was working 7 days a week. I was shooting nonstop. My kids were in before care. They were in aftercare. I had an au pair. So I've done my time, but that life sucks. And I have no aspirations to be, the most popular photographer in Maryland. I don't care about that. I'd rather have peace in my life and enjoy my farm animals and then shoot, because I do enjoy shooting. I do love my clients. I have a lot of fun with them, but I don't need like 7,000 clients. It's just too much.
Yeah, and you can't take on 7,000 clients. And I think that's kind of a misconception with a lot of photographers out there, is that you think to be fully booked, you need thousands and thousands of people, but it's not. You kind of pick what fully booked means to you and what it means to have your calendar, totally, booked. So that's a great point. Now, going back to your beginning days, because a lot of the people that are listening to the show are newer to photography, can you share with them one of the biggest mistakes you made that you wish you could go back and tell yourself, like, no, don't do that? So
is this a business mistake or a photography mistake?
You know what? It could be, but you could do one of each, or you could just surprise us.
I don't know. Well, it's funny because I look back on a lot of things like posts that I've done or even just classes that I produce, and I'm cringing. I'm like, who is that? It was only like 3 years ago, and I'm already like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. So I don't know. I mean, I guess don't be afraid to try things, because I think that even though I may look back and cringe, all of those like mistakes or, just trying different things is what got me to where I am now. So I don't know. I think it's okay to try all the genres like I did. I mean, definitely people were like, oh no, you need to specialize. But I was doing boudoir, I was doing the weddings, corporate events. I think the more experience that they have, like that you can go out and get, the more you're going to know what you want to do. So I don't think it's bad to try different things. And I guess don't be afraid to make mistakes, because I don't know. I mean, I think I've made a lot of them. And I mean, like, I still look back and cringe, but I think that's okay. So you're probably moving in the right direction if you look back and cringe at your old self. Otherwise, you're just staying the same.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, Helen. Like, if you're not cringing at your former self, then you're not on the right track.
Well, at least it makes me feel better thinking about it like that.
What a good quote there. You should get that out there everywhere and make sure your name's all across that. I like it.
Oh my gosh.
So I know you said something earlier about not being a camera snob. And I like that a lot, because with my students, I teach them a lot that it's not about the gear. You don't have to run out and buy, the newest camera model and all the lenses out there. So I love that you are right on the same page with me about that. I also know, though, that you had said something about knowing the right lenses to use in different scenarios. So could you give us some tips on what lenses would be the best to use and what situation?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So I'll just tell you what I do. When I go for my family portrait sessions, I have a holster with a holster with two cameras. So two different camera bodies. And on one of them, I have the 35 millimeter, and the other one I have the 85. So the 35, is good for, it's a wider lens. So you're getting more of the scene, the pullback shots, the full body. And I shoot almost everything. Like, I duplicate the shots with the 85. So I'll have to, if I'm staying in the same spot, I'm not going to get the full body with that. I'm going to get, more of like a portrait. And the look is so different. I mean, the 85, I think those are the ones that a lot of times that people are making their profile pictures. That's what they're framing and printing. I don't know. I do love the look at the 35 too. It's almost like a safer shot, just to have those. But I love the 85 for like the creamy background. I mean, you're getting that, that really pretty bokeh. that I think most people hire the photographers for. I used to use a 135 as my secondary lens, but you have to be so many million miles away that like with babies, forget it. Like it just doesn't work. So, choosing the right lens, like if I were to do an engagement, which I don't do a lot of anymore because I don't shoot weddings. But if I do, or like a maternity couple that doesn't have kids yet, that's like almost like an engagement to me because it's like I just get to work with them and pose them. It's so fun. I can use that 135 because they can take directions, so I can go a million miles away and still get those pretty shots. But I don't really shoot any wider than a 35 if I'm doing portraits. So if you were doing landscapes, then you may want a much wider lens. So
that's a great tip. And I do the same thing. When I do families, I've got two lenses. Mine are a little different. I do the 135 and the 50 to give that difference, but it's really similar to what you said because you get two totally different looks. So just something for you guys to think about too. And again, it doesn't have to be the same exact lens that Helen uses or that I use, but you might want to have two different things or a zoom lens so that you could get some variety in your shots too. Now, Helen, you and I are part of the creative collaboration, which all goes down at the end of this month. Now, I'm not sure when you guys are listening to this episode of the podcast, so it might even be open right now, or it might be in just very soon for you. But the creative collaboration is super cool because we collaborate with photographers from all over that do really, great things and teach people in all kinds of ways. And Helen, what you are doing inside the creative collaboration speaks with everything you've talked about here today. Can you explain what course you are going to be teaching inside the creative? That's a tongue twister, right? Creative. I know, it really is. I've said it so many times. What will you be teaching photographers as part of that at the end of this month?
Yeah, so I have a smartphone photography class. So, it's totally different from, teaching the big camera. And I have that class too. It's not a digital course though. But so this is a digital course that obviously that's like the appeal of it. You can do it whenever and wherever you want. Really short lessons. And I go through teaching all of the different tips and tricks on your phone. So a lot of people don't even realize that if you have an iPhone, you can change the f-stop of your portraits, which is pretty awesome. So I'm actually I made this class a few years ago and I'm going in and I'm updating it. Some of the cringy stuff needed to be cut out, but also because some things have changed. So, like burst mode is different now than it was 3 years ago. So, my students have, a lot of them are entrepreneurs. They want to get like photos for their businesses, stuff like that. Or, moms who want to take better pictures of their kids and they don't always want to have that big camera around. So I give tips on how to get those really great shots with your iPhone or Android. I do have Android substitutions in there as well, which is tough for me because I don't have an Android, but I try to include it so it is more, applicable to more people. But I also have lighting in there, and that section can be applied to using any camera. So I just give a really basic and good solid fundamental on light, like basically like diffuse light versus like direct light. And then I talk about composition too, and that can be applied also to, people who are using any kind of camera. So I really feel like it's a foundational class just to, and it's brief. It's only, I think it's like 2 or 3 hours worth of videos in total to get you taking noticeably better pictures. And like just to switch people onto things like looking for catch lights, the average person doesn't really even know what that is. So, those little tweaks will like improve their photography in a pretty short time frame.
No, I'm excited for that one because I don't know a lot about my phone, and I'm getting to the point, just like you said, where a lot of times I don't want to take my big camera everywhere with my family. Like I want to enjoy the moment. I want to still take pictures, but I'd like to know what I can do more with my phone too. So I'm super excited for that. And you guys, it's not just me and Helen that are a part of it. I'm going to be talking with people inside the creative collaboration this whole month. So depending on when you're listening to this episode right now, you can click the link that is in the show notes, or if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you're listening, just click in the description and there will be a spot that will take you there. The creative collaboration happens once this year. Like I said, it is education from photographers all over to help you get better with your photography skills. But Helen, if people would like to hang out with you a little bit more, maybe find out more about you or see your beautiful pictures, where can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram is sort of the main hub that I actually like monitor and try to post there and check in. So it's dot Helen Don. And then my website is just helendon.com. Super simple. You can see a picture of me and my daughter and my chicken on the front page. And actually, my son took that when he was like 9 years old. He's so proud. He said that the kids at school they go to my website. They're like, "You took that picture, Luke? No way." So yeah, he's also one of my students. And he takes amazing pictures. He always takes my headshots.
Oh, that's fun. You know it. And I've got to tell you, our sons would probably get along because my son, he doesn't like it as much anymore, but he does do a lot of my headshots and behind the scenes stuff for me too. So,
and is this your 14-year-old?
This is my 14-year-old.
Okay,
yeah. He doesn't so much like to be in front of the camera, but he will help me out not behind anymore. The camera. So awesome. Well, you guys, I'm going to put Helen's Instagram link and webpage in the show notes too. So if you didn't have a chance to, jot that down or memorize that, just go to the show notes or the description anywhere you are listening to this podcast right now. You can click that link, go follow Helen over on Instagram, send her a DM, say hello, let her know that you listened to the show today. And Helen, thank you so much for hanging out with us, for inspiring us to continue our photography dreams and, just letting us know that we don't need all this expensive gear out there to be a great photographer.
Well, thank you for having me. It was an honor.
I absolutely loved having Helen on the show with us today. Make sure to go check her out on her Instagram and make sure to keep your eyes and ears peeled for the creative collaboration that will be available starting on February 27th. Don't worry, I will keep you updated. So as long as you are listening to the show, checking in with the emails that I'm sending you, then you will not forget it. It is going to be all kinds of wonderful. Like I said, this only happens once a year. Next week, we're going to have even more contributors from the collaboration on the show. So make sure that you've hit subscribe to the Stay Focused podcast over on iTunes so that you don't miss any of these bonus episodes that are happening this month. All right, you guys, I will be back next week. But until then, here is to staying in focus, in camera, and with your goals. Bye, you guys.